Good morning. This is Christina Perry with Peregrine Global Services. I want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. It is 9 o'clock here in Mountain Time Zone, so we'll go ahead and get started. But before we do, I'd like to make some introductions. With me on the call also is my colleague, Denise Elbert. Denise, could you say hello?
Thanks, Christina. Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm glad you're here today. I'm a client service manager here at Peregrine and happy to answer any questions as well that you may have when we get done.
Okay, and I know many of you from, normally we would have been in San Antonio at the ACJS annual meeting last week. Really sorry that we didn't get together again, but this is a great opportunity and I'm so glad you can join us so that we can meet virtually and offer you some new resources. One thing I'd like to point out, Denise and I both, before we began working with Peregrine and in the world of academic improvement, both of us have a background in criminal justice. I was the court administrator for a district court in the Northeast Wyoming District Court for 4 years. And Denise, can you just share your background?
Certainly, yes. Actually, I have over 25 years in corrections. I started out with Department of Corrections Probation and Parole as an officer and then a district manager, and then I ran a treatment court for felony court and DUI courts. So it was a really great career, and I have a real passion for this, for criminal justice. So I'm happy to be here today.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, and that's one of the things when I was chatting with Denise yesterday about doing this presentation, we were thinking that of all of the academic programs that we work with, criminal justice might be the one where the soft skills are really the most crucial. And that's something that we've learned from meeting with you at conferences. You know, the knowledge, the theory behind things, the concepts are very important, but knowing how to deal with difficult people in situation, people in crisis, keep your calm, manage your emotions, and communicate effectively, those seem to be of the utmost importance for your field. So thank you for joining us. With that, I'm going to turn off my camera just to conserve bandwidth, but I did want to say hello, and we will get started. So up on my screen here, what we're doing today is we are introducing a new tool to assess soft skills in your criminal justice program, and it's called EvaluSkills. This is a new service that we've just developed. We've done our first round of pilot testing with a couple of universities, and we're going to be launching it this fall commercially to the rest of our partners. Before we get started here, I see there is one hand raised. Are there any questions before we start? Maybe it's an accidental hand raise. So if you do have any questions, just go ahead and type them in the question bar there, or there's a chat bar. Denise is going to be monitoring the activity on the chat bar while I give the presentation. We're scheduled here for about 30 minutes. So, you know, feel free to type something in and Denise will interrupt me if you have a question at any point. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. In that chat bar as well, you'll find there's a section for handouts. I've saved a copy of the presentation slides there, so if you'd like to download them, share them with any colleagues, please do that. And then I've also attached a handout, which is a sample instrument for EvaluSkills, where I've gone in and I've chosen skills that seem to apply best to ACJS standards for curriculum. And so it will show you what an instrument might look like. So feel free to download those. Okay, with that, EvaluSkills is a 360-degree evaluation, and you might be familiar with that process. This is something that we do online. We started doing this with business and industry over a decade ago for leadership development, but we're using it now for higher education and encouraging participants, which in this case would be your students, to gather feedback from a variety of sources. So whether that be their professors, mentors, advisors, if they have an internship supervisor or they volunteer, people who work with them, also fellow students that they might have done a team project with. These are the kind of people that we want to evaluate them so that they get an unbiased view of their strengths and weaknesses. In the past, I have given presentations at the ACJS assessment workshop on measuring learning outcomes, but it's been more about knowledge-based learning outcomes, about knowing about courts or criminological theory and being able to measure that student retained knowledge. Same idea here for that cycle of assessment, in that you have intended student learning outcomes for soft skills, those workplace competencies. We'll identify those with you, define the best tools to measure them, do the evaluation process, gather the results, and then you can see where further development might be needed, where students are really shining, and you can emphasize that. But we're using the 360-degree evaluation as the measurement tool in the cycle of continuous improvement. So when I started working with this service and we were adapting basically what had been done in industry to higher education, I reached out to some people that I met at conferences and said, can you give me an example of your learning outcomes? What are you trying to teach students? And some of them were, technical knowledge, hard skills, but then here are a few others that I gathered. Communication was high up there, particularly with different types of audiences. So not just academic writing, but can you communicate with different types of audiences? Leadership, effective, competent, ethical leadership was one of the outcomes that kept coming up. And then also appreciating diversity, learning from people who might be different from you, and approaching the world with a curious mind. These are some types of learning outcomes that you might want to measure. Now, why would we need to assess them? First of all, it's part of your institutional accreditation, right? If you have a learning outcome, you should be finding some way to measure it so that you can make improvements. And that's what we're aiming at here. Also, one of the things that we've really been working with partners this last couple of years is meeting employer expectations. I'll talk a little bit here about the National Association of Colleges and Employers and also SHRM recommendations for human resources, but they're finding that graduates entering the workforce may have a lot of knowledge, but lack some of that experience, that comes with being on the job. We also want to assess soft skills for the students' own personal and professional development so that they can get a better understanding, gain insight from others of where they might have some blind spots and need to develop their skills. And then, like I was saying, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, this is an association that works with human resource specialists and colleges to figure out what skills are lacking in graduates and how colleges can better meet workforce expectations. So this NACE 8 is what they call them. You can find them online. These are the 8 competencies that they find most necessary and most predictive of student success in the workplace. So these might be some things that are built into your learning outcomes as well. Okay, now going into the realm of higher education and really how this applies to you, we did a little bit of research here on, this is a SHRM report that came out last year of the top missing soft skills: problem solving, communication, critical thinking, innovation and creativity, and dealing with ambiguity. These are just, a handful of skills that might be a focus of your program, but we've created a test bank, I guess you could call them, of hundreds of possible skills so that you can go through and choose the ones that match your program and create an instrument to gather feedback on those skills. In particular, and the instrument that I've uploaded as a handout here focuses on ACJS alignment. So in their section B of the ACJS standards about program structure, it emphasizes diversity, ethics, critical thinking, and communication. So I've gone through and I've created an instrument from items, taking assessment items that measure those skills, and then that's something that you could administer to give to your students to assign to different evaluators. Here's an example. This is a copy actually of what the instrument cover page looks like, and then the different items we've chosen from ACJS standards. Now, when we work with universities, we would help design an instrument that fit their learning outcomes. So if these aren't exactly what you're looking at, we have I think there are 250 or 300 different skills that you can choose from, and we also have the ability so you can go in and write your own. So if you say, I don't see victim advocacy it listed here. I'd really like to measure how well my students are doing that. You could create your own rubric that says, okay, this is what I mean by this skill, and these are the statements and behaviors associated with it. I mentioned the rubric there. So for each of those 250, 300 items, so here, value diversity, we really wanted to avoid subjectivity in the evaluators. If I'm doing an evaluation for a student and Denise is also evaluating the student, we might have a different idea of what average or above average or excellent could be. So what we've done is for each of the items, we've created a statement by what we mean and then sample behaviors. So that when I'm looking at value diversity, I can say, well, this person really does only have like-minded friends with similar backgrounds. So that's more the unsatisfactory category. Whereas if this is someone who really loves traveling, exploring, speaks different languages, gets to know people from different backgrounds, maybe they're in the excellent or exceptional category. So this is really supposed to give more of an objective measure so that people have an idea of what we're meaning. Okay, so that kind of gives you a look at what one of the sample rubrics might be for an item. Now I'm just going to walk you through the process of this tool, and then if you have questions about it, let me know. We are recording this as well, so we can provide a link later on if you need that. I'll start with the definitions. The assessment items, though, that is the menu of different skills available. So like I said, we have at least 250 of them. You can search these in the system by keyword. So if you're looking for communication, it might bring up oral communication. It might bring up nonverbal communication, written communication. You can choose which ones you need. They're also categorized by type, whether it's a character, a skill, or an action. So those assessment items are the different competencies that you could be measuring. Now the instrument template, this is where we put them together we choose the different items and we put them together into an instrument which you could administer to your group. And we've created some that are ready-made so that you don't have to wade through those hundreds of items. We might have one that's, okay, this is the ACJS template. And you could view that and say, oh, I like it, but I'd like to add a few things, or I'd like to take some away. You can make adjustments. And once you like it, you can create the assessment. That's when you take the template and say, okay, let's launch this. Let's make an active assessment. We're going to add some participants, which in your case would probably be the students that you're assessing. In a business, it might be employees, it might be leaders, it could be any group that you're trying to do. And then for each participant, they'll have several evaluators. The evaluators are the people that receive an invitation to log in. They can use their phone or their computer, go through item by item, and rate the participant on the different skills. And then the reports are, we have different reports available, both for the participant and for the administrator, to see how well the individual is doing, where their strengths and weaknesses lie, how to create an action plan, and then also to see how well your group is doing. So that's very interesting in an academic context. You can see where your group's strengths are. If you do some remediation and you want to remeasure them at the end of the program, you can show improvement. Now, I like a good analogy to picture how we do things. So when I talked about creating an instrument and launching an assessment, I was thinking of pizzeria. When I go to my favorite pizzeria, I can build my own pizza. I can just look at all the ingredients they have and make my pizza. Or, I really like some that they already have on the menu. Here at Pizza Corello and Gillette, the Green Monster is a great one to go with. But what we have here is you can build your own instrument from the ingredients, which are the assessment items, the different skills available, mix and match them like you like. Or if you like one of the pizzas we have on the menu, you like the leading teams one, or you like the communication template, you can go ahead and look at that and make some substitutions if you want, but launch your own assessment. So we've made it very flexible that way. This, we have some screenshots here from the EvaluSkills platform. Once you log in as an administrator, you can browse the available templates, and then you can run a report on those, download the PDF copy, and it will show you each of the items that you're evaluating and then the rubrics associated with each, so that you can see, is that really what I want to capture? If you want to make adjustments, add or delete items, you can. And then if you're ready, there's a button to create assessment, and that's where you're going to add your participants, add evaluators if you want, or let the participants add their own evaluators. So for each of the assessment items that you choose, and you'll see these when you download the instrument report. It'll give you the title, the definition, and then it'll give you the statements and behaviors associated with each. Like I said, this is really made so that we have a more standardized experience across evaluators of what we mean. So here for your troubleshooter, this is someone who's an innovative thinker and good at critical observation and good at finding solutions. So it talks about what we mean by exceptional to unsatisfactory. Okay, so that's the setup of the instrument. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like for the participant and for the evaluator. The participant, the student in this case, will get an email and it will invite them to log in and create their EvaluSkills account. So they would have a link to log into the platform and create their password. They can go ahead and upload their profile picture just like they would for Facebook or LinkedIn or any of the socials. And that's a nice cue so that if I'm inviting evaluators to do my evaluation, when they log in, they'll see my face, and that's a good cue. Oh, this is especially if you have a lot of students, putting a face to a name can help. The participant can enter their own evaluators, choosing a mix of people at different organizational levels, what like they are, if they're professors or advisors, supervisors, that type of thing, some peers. We also have it set up so that you as an administrator can choose the evaluators if you're not letting the students do it themselves, or you can do a mix of both. Say, I want everybody's advisor to be an evaluator, and then they can choose some peers. The participant could run the instrument report and download it and get a better idea of the skills that they're looking at. They can also do a self-evaluation, which is, I think it's really useful. Now, the scores that the student gives himself, those aren't going to be averaged in for their rating, but it will be compared against their evaluators' feedback. So for example, if I think I'm a great oral communicator, I give myself a 5, but my average evaluator score is a 2.8, and their comments say that I tend to be a little long-winded and not listen to others. They give me some feedback. That's something that I would really want to pay attention to and see where I could improve. And then after my evaluators have completed their feedback, I have at least 2 external evaluators. We prefer somewhere between 5 and 10. I can run the participant report and see my highest and lowest scores, my average scores, and any comments. And I can use those to build an action plan to sustain my strengths or mitigate any weaknesses. So here, on the left, we have, I'm on my phone and I'm logged into the platform. I can add my evaluators. It tells me to invite at least 3 and what role they play. Sorry, I've got quite a cough there. So I can choose a variety of people. It's nice to choose, maybe 10 people because you won't necessarily get feedback from everyone, but to choose a variety, and then also to do the self-assessment so I can compare my own assessment of myself to what others think of me. Now for an evaluator, say I've named Denise as a peer and she is going to do my evaluation, she would get an email as well that says, Christina Perry has asked you to provide feedback in the EvaluSkills 360 evaluation. So Denise would log into her account and set up a password. She could also just get a link to do my evaluation directly, but this is nice to have her own account in case she has several people she's evaluating. Maybe a lot of people from Peregrine want her to do an evaluation. Then she would log on the tab there that says my evaluation. She can see everything that's pending and completed. If she's asked to do my evaluation, she can download that report to see what exactly she's being asked, maybe think about it before she does item by item evaluation. And then once she's ready, she'll hit that link, evaluate Christina, and then go through the items. So if she's looking at, ethical behavior, communication, mitigating conflict, that type of thing, she'll go line by line and rate me, provide any written feedback and turn it in. And then she can also go back and see, okay, well, I also evaluated someone else. How did they compare? And she can keep herself consistent that way. So the feedback is all confidential. I won't see which evaluator rated me what. It'll just be a collection of all, 5 or 10 or however many people I had evaluating me. It'll give me average scores and a list of their comments. So the evaluator can review what they've done. If they've skipped any, they can go back and answer them and submit them. And then there has to be a minimum number completed before the participant can generate the results report. I mean, Technically, any more than 2 completed will let you run a report because that protects the confidentiality, but we can set a higher threshold if you want people to have more evaluations. And like I said, we encourage evaluators to give candid feedback that students can really use, knowing that it won't be attributed to them, that all their responses are confidential. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of water because I keep yapping. Okay. Now I just want to show you the reports. Now this is if you are an authorized user for your account, and Denise would be one that sets you up for this. You can log into the EvaluSkills platform and see all of your students, where with the progress on them. You can run the group report. You can download what instruments they've been using. You can send reminders to people, but we have the platform there for you to use. Before you launch the assessment, that's where we would encourage you to download the instrument report. And just review all the items, make sure that's what you want to use, pass it around with your colleagues. Kind of it helps to see things printed out sometimes to just make sure that's what you want to use. And that's something that if you, it's exactly the same questions and format that you would get if you're doing it online. So if you want to see what it looks like, or even complete one on paper, you can do that with the instrument report. Now, once you've started the assessment, okay, I've done my criminal justice capstone assessment. I've launched it. I've invited all of the students to enter their evaluators, and this is going to close on May 1st. Whatever feedback we've gotten on May 1st, the participants can run their reports, providing they have at least 2 external evaluators, and they can compare their own self-score against what their evaluators saw for them and what their average group score was. They'll get an action plan, which they can log into online, and they can create some plans for how they're going to hold themselves accountable for making changes. And then you would also get a group report, which breaks down the average group scores, where the strengths and weaknesses are. So let me show you those. This is from the participant point of view. The participants logged in. They did an assessment called Leading Teams. They can run the instrument report to see the questions, but they can run their participant report to see their individual results. So here are my individual results. This had quite a few items being evaluated. I can see the blue line there is my average score of a 3.26, so that's a little above meets expectations, which is pretty good. I can see that I really excelled in curiosity and also global awareness. Those were ones I scored really high on. But if I look at my weaknesses, I can say, oh, business ethics is a weakness, that's going to concern me. So I might have to read into my feedback and see what concerns people had about me, and then use that in my action plan to maybe make some improvements there. I'll also see the distribution of my ratings, how many evaluators rated me at each level. I can see that my self-score here on emotional intelligence was a 4. But my evaluator average, they didn't quite agree with me. It's a little bit lower. And I scored lower than my group did as a whole. So this might be a blind spot for me, emotional intelligence, and that might be something I need to address. I would address this in my action plan, which comes at the end of my participant report, but I would also have an action plan when I log into EvaluSkills, and it would separate my strengths and weaknesses and provide me this little table where I can enter text and download that. So if being open-minded is a weakness for me, I might think of some actions, how I can improve that, a timeline, and a person to keep me accountable. For the group report, so this is you as an administrator can log in and see how well your capstone group did, or whichever group you're evaluating. You can check their progress and run a report. The report it's a pretty lengthy document because you're going to have scores for each of the items. Here's just an overall graphic that shows that my group, from highest to lowest, in accountability, we scored on average 4.4. So we're very good with accountability. Value diversity, we fell below expectations at a 2.8. So that might be an area for development for my program. And then it'll walk through for each of the items that you were evaluating, the number of ratings, and as you can see here on frequency of ratings, this is for my group as a whole. So 94 evaluators rated my group a 5, 77 evaluators rated them a 4. And we can see that my group as a whole self-scored themselves a 3.85 in dealing with ambiguity, but their evaluators saw them a little more positively. So maybe my students underestimate how well they handle uncertainty. And then for each of those items, I'll get a breakdown that's actually going to list the participants, the students here, who scored significantly below or above the average score. So here on dealing with uncertainty and ambiguity, my average score is a 4.11. I can set my significance level to, here it's a 0.2, but we might want to broaden that to make it even a full point. And then see, okay, who really struggles with uncertainty and ambiguity and who does really well. I mean, you might use that for tutoring, development, any sort of plans you want to help people improve. And then just to recap this, the report used, the participant report is for the individuals. This is something for personal development where I can see what my average score was and then compare that to where I really shine and where I really might have a little bit more difficulty. There'll be some written feedback, some anonymous comments. Those can be kind of hard to stomach, but that is gift because those are things we don't normally hear about ourselves, and we can use it for improvement, and we can create that action plan to learn how to change others' perceptions of ourselves and be more effective in the workplace. Now, for the group report, this is something that not every individual will get. They're not going to be able to compare themselves against their classmates, but you as a program leader might need to consider the developmental needs of your group and consider which students really shined in certain areas that might be good coaches, might be able to give presentations on those areas. You can see where your group has blind spots and can use some further development. And if you decide to do this type of an evaluation at the beginning of a graduate program, for example, and then once they're in the workplace, that would be really interesting to see how they might have improved their skills. I'll take a quick breather right now. Are there any questions? Denise, do you see any hands raised, or if anyone wants to ask any questions while we take a quick break?
I don't see any hands raised right now, Christina, and I do not see any questions either. So I think somebody wants to interject now. I think you're good.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that as positive feedback that I was very clear in my presentation. We'll close this out because we're almost at a half hour now, but I'm just going to go through. If you decide this is something that your program could benefit from, like I said, we are launching this fall. We want to hold your hand through it. This is new. We really want to work with you to say, okay, what outcomes are you really trying to measure? Do we have something in our test bank that fits? Or do we need to work with you to create some new content? That's all available. But if you decide to create an instrument, we do different pricing here for business and industry and then higher education. There's a price break for students. This is something we've been using with our industry clients for, like I said, over a decade. But for students, we would lower the price. And if it's something you want to do, across several programs, we might work with you on a package deal, particularly if you're already using some of our knowledge-based assessment services. But this gives some idea for pricing. Now, the price is per participant, no matter how many evaluators they have. So if your students each have 3 or 4 evaluators, that's the same price as if they have 10 evaluators. And really, we encourage them to have more feedback rather than less. If you do want to get started, you would just reach out to us and we would have an onboarding packet, which would include some information about what types of skills you're measuring in your program so that we can create a template for you to review and have your suggestions. And then we would help you onboard to show how you upload participants, how you manage the process, how you send reminders, and how to generate reports. I'll just close this out, and I did introductions at the beginning just to give you a little background about Denise and myself. Denise is with the client service team, and she helps answer any questions. And if you've worked with Peregrine before, you know that we are very responsive. And this service really came about from listening to our clients. When I've been at conferences and people say, okay, well, that's nice, all the knowledge-based tests, but how do you measure critical thinking? How do you measure teamwork? This is our attempt to find a solution for those type of problems. we do have a very diverse background at Peregrine. Everybody who works with us, some of them have come from the world of higher education. Some of us have come from different backgrounds. We've worked all over the world. So we use that type of knowledge in our partnerships to create content that is relevant to solve the problems that you're addressing right now. So we're wanting your students to enter the workplace with their best foot forward and have the knowledge they need to succeed. So this really is, this is new, and this is a way we can use an online service to help students make an impact in their workplace. And we'd be very excited to work with you. So if you have any questions about this service or any of Peregrine services really, here is our phone number. Now, we are all working remotely right now. We're all at home, but we're fully operational. That info at Peregrine Global email account, I monitor that, so I will be able to respond to you. And that phone number, we transfer our calls to our homes right now, but please do reach out to us if you have questions, if you have feedback, if you want to learn more. We are available, and I just really want to thank you for joining us today. I know this has been a very difficult time, and you know, I'm sorry that I didn't get to see you in person in San Antonio, but I hope that we can continue our partnership, and just know that we're here for you in any way we can be. Okay, well, thank you. I'm just looking quickly. I don't see any raised hands, no questions, and nothing in the chat bar. Please download the handouts if you're interested, and send me an email or give me a call if you have any questions. Thank you.